Ionic bonding is the type of bond that you find between metals and nonmetals. When metals and nonmetals react together, the metal atom loses electrons and it can give you a positively charged ion, while the nonmetal will pick up that electron to give negatively charged ion. The ionic bonding comes from the electrostatic interaction between the positively charged ions of the metal and the negatively charged atoms from the non-metal. We can represent ionic bonding and what happens there using the dot and cross diagram. For example, if we are going to represent the ionic bonding between sodium and chloride, we have sodium, which is one of the metals. Sodium is a group 1 element which has only one electron in its outer shell. When you do the dot and cross diagram, you only need to draw or show the outer shell electrons. You don't have to draw the inner shells. So sodium has only one electron in its outer shell. And using the dot and cross diagram, we will represent the electron of the sodium using the dot. While chlorine is in one of the group 7 elements, so it has 7 electrons in its outer shell. We represent the electrons of the chlorine using the cross. Now sodium is going to lose that electron and chlorine is going to gain that electron. Now we're going to have a sodium ion with 1 plus charge, and we're going to have a chloride or a chlorine ion, which is called chloride, which is going to have 1 extra electron, which is this one, the one with the dot that was gained from the sodium, and it's going to have a negative charge. Now, the electrostatic interaction between the positively charged ion of sodium and negatively charged ion of chloride will give us the ionic compound and the ionic bonding between sodium and chlorine, which is sodium chloride. Now we can represent that as well for compounds like magnesium oxide. Well, magnesium is one of the group 2 elements, so it has 2 electrons in its outer shell. The electrons of magnesium is going to be represented with the dot. And then we have the oxygen, which is group 6 element. It has 6 electrons in its outer shell. Magnesium will lose the 2 electrons and the oxygen will gain these 2 electrons. So oxygen can have the full outer shell of 8 electrons. Now 2 electrons from magnesium will move to oxygen, and then we're going to end up with magnesium ion, which is 2 plus, and the oxygen ion, which is 2 minus, and we're going to have the magnesium oxide. The electrostatic interaction between the positively charged ion of magnesium and the negatively charged ion of oxygen will give us the ionic compound magnesium oxide. We can also see these ionic bonding if we have more than just 2 ions or more than just 2 atoms. For example, if you have sodium and it reacts with oxygen, sodium has only 1 electron in its outer shell. Oxygen has 6 electrons in its outer shell as it's one of the group 6 element. Now, sodium, if it loses this electron and if the oxygen gains that electron, oxygen will only have 7 electrons in its outer shell. So oxygen will need an extra electron to get that. Then another atom of sodium is going to react. Now, 2 electrons from the 2 different sodiums will be moving from the sodium into the oxygen. And then we're going to have 2 ions of sodium, each with 1 plus, and we're going to have 1 ion of oxygen, which is 2 minus, and the electrostatic interaction between these will give us the ionic compound, which is sodium oxide. So 2 ions of sodium and 1 ion of oxygen.